What's up, vlog cabin lifers? We're gonna do a little experiment here today, putting on a 72-inch custom Toothbar kit on the Kubota BX2200 today. I ordered this kit from Titan Distributors. You can get it online. I can put the link on them. Comes with a 60-inch half-inch plate, which we're going to cut down to fit our Kubota bucket. So it comes with the main half-inch plate, some 3/8 mounting plates that get welded. Comes with 6 shanks and 6 teeth that also get pinned on. Comes with the pins, special pins. So, and also the bolts, nuts, and washers. Just have to drill some holes through the bucket, and then we can bolt it on and take it off whenever we don't want it. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is measure the inside of the bucket, and ours is about 46.5. So measure the half-inch plate, mark it at 46.5. Use one of these plates to make a straight edge. Alright, and we're going to cut this. Let me grab the cutter and everything, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got my safety glasses, very important. Some gloves, welding gloves, so you don't cut your finger like I did on another project. 7-inch angle grinder I'm using today with a cut-off wheel. And I guess this is a 7-inch wheel with a 7-inch angle grinder. And we're just gonna kind of go over our line and give it a light pass, just to establish where we're gonna cut, and just keep working it back and forth and go from there. Alright, so we have it cut. There's some sharp edges which we'll address a little bit here. We're just going to do a dry fit in here. And a little tight. Little burrs. Which is good because we can always take more off. It's hard to add it back on. So what you want to do is, there is a weld in the bucket here. I want to get a nice close-up of that. There's a weld in the bucket here, so we're going to have to bevel the bottom edge of the plate just a little bit, so it allows space for that weld. So we're going to take care of that right now, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I'm going to use my smaller 4.5-inch grinder with a 4.5-inch flap disc. It's 60 grit here, to sand down a little bit so it fits nice inside the bucket, and to bevel the inside bottom edges, just the bottom, so it fits also over top of those welds. So I'll take it. Okay, so we're done beveling this and cleaning it up so it'll fit nicely in here. I just want to show you a couple close-ups here what I did. A nice bevel on both ends. And one important note that I saw helped, just look inside here real close. I just kind of took a little bit of the high of the weld away, a couple spatter. There's a couple beads on there, probably from factory. Not so much because it's a used unit, but if it's a new unit, you're probably going to have a little bit of that. Don't take a whole lot off because you don't want to loosen it there and reduce the strength. So I did a little bit on both sides just to make it fit nice and flat in there. So next we're gonna lay it in here. And just to get kind of set up here, grab two of them. Two of the shanks, doesn't really matter, I just kind of put them close to the ends. And push the shank all the way in and pull this all the way up against, and it looks like it's going to be flush here. See that real close? It's going to be nice and flush in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab our end plates and get them set up, and we'll show you that in a little bit here. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay out the end plates here, the side plates that get mounted onto the bucket with bolts. And from the pictures I saw, these two lines, these two holes, the lower one here is closer to the front of the bucket, the higher one here goes back, so that's how we're going to keep them on both sides. So all I'm going to do is lay it in here flush, so this side is flush here, and what I'm going to do is just mark this edge here, so this one goes here, do this side, flush there, do that there. I'll show you what I'm going to do there in a little bit. Alright, so in addition to marking this inside edge here, I'm going to do this while I have it loose, is mark this here. We're going to cut that off and make it look nice and clean on both sides. So before I weld anything together, I'm going to cut that off. You don't have a sharp edge sticking out. Alright, so we finished knocking off the corner here and beveling this, so when we go to weld it'll get better penetration there. One more place I'd like to bevel is the top of this edge, so when this is in there and in there flush, I'm going to run a bead outside here, so I'm going to bevel this just a little bit, not as much as the bottom, and I'm going to bevel this plate also on this side, so it'll be beveled on both sides, get good penetration all around. So we'll do that and we'll be right back. Okay, so we got everything prepped and ready for tacking on here. I'm going to show you just what I did. I removed all the mill scale from all the areas that we're going to be welding. Very important to get very good weld penetration and adhesion. So I beveled the bottom plate edge, beveled both sides here, and removed all mill scale. So what I'm going to do is, got just some tags here, a couple thousandths after you fold it. What that's going to do is when we put these plates on here, I'm going to line it up here, everything just kind of dry fit, and I'm going to line it up here, and I got that paper back there. That's just going to give us a little bit of clearance, and that's not going to stay in. That's just for tacking in place, and what that's going to do is just give us a little bit of space, so when we tack it up, things never get looser, if that's even a word, but things always get tighter, it seems. So obviously when this thing gets welded, things move, and when you get dirt in here, you want to be able to get this thing in and out relatively easy, so I don't want to clamp it all the way up against when I go to weld it. So I have a piece of paper back there, and I'm just going to clamp it in place here, dry fit everything, and then we're going to start tacking. Just going to start tacking the plates together before we do anything with the shanks. So let's get set up and we'll be right back. So we're going to just tack the base plate and the mount side plates up. Just tack it for now, and we'll lay some more stuff out where the teeth got to go, and we'll tack those on, get everything set up and happy where everything is, and then we'll weld everything. So here we go, a couple tacks. Day 2 of the build here, got a little too late last night, finished, so we're going to continue here. What I did last night, was to mark off and measure in between each of these shanks. It's going to be about 7 1/4, evenly spaced in between each one, and just kind of mark them. So what I'm going to do is grind the mill scale off there and grind this paint, I guess they have on here, just so it doesn't rust. Grind that all off so it's nice bare metal for welding. And what I'm going to do is switch to a 40 grit flap disc rather than the 60 grit that I was using earlier. It's a little too fine, so this will go a lot quicker and get down to that bare metal. So we're going to clean this all up and then we'll be right back. Alright, so I ground all the mill scale off of the base plate and the shanks. Now what I'm doing is preheating the heavy plate and shanks, because this is a little bit heavier probably than what I should be welding with my welder, but we'll make it work. I just want to make sure we get great welds, so preheating it with my torch. See here, ground all the edges that are going to get weld on them. Ground the base plate. So we're just going to do this for a while, get it all nice and heated up. I'm going to weld all the 4 inner shanks. And I'm going to weld the side plate to the base plate. And I'm going to have to grind this down a little bit so I can get this all the way up against over top of that other weld, and then weld this on that left end and the right end. Same thing over there. So it's going to be a little while. So that takes care of all that. I got these 2 already done. Do 1 more and then I got to do the ends. So I'm going to get a little close up of that, see how it looks. Not too bad. So let me finish up and show you what's next. Alright, so I got all the middle ones, the 4 middle ones all welded up on top. And then I welded the side plates on, and actually I ground down the weld a little bit to make it a nice radius. Leave this a little bit of clearance, and it's going to go right up against the end now. And then we'll weld over top of it as well. Do that on both sides, and then we'll check back with you. Alright, so we got all the shanks welded on, at least from the top side. I'm going to let it cool off while it's clamped in here, so it minimizes the amount that it's going to bow. It's trying to bow itself right now from all the welds on top, but leave it clamped in here, let it cool off. Probably tomorrow, finish the welds on the back side and underside, and then on the outsides of the side plates. So I'll see up close some of the welds. Take a look. I think I got some good penetration in there. That should hold. Okay, so we're at the point now where it's cooled off Got all the welds on the top pretty much done. I think they look pretty good. They should hold. Next, I want to weld the back sides here on the two ends that I couldn't get while it was in the bucket. Just wrap that. I'm going to use the big torch to heat it up too, since it cooled off. And then I think it's starting to get heavy. What I also want to hit is down inside here on each of the shanks. So that should pretty much be completely welded around each of the shanks. That should do it for that. And while it was cooling down, I marked the insides of the bucket for the holes that I need to drill. Not sure how I'm going to do that yet for the 5/8 bolts. I don't have a drill that big, so I might have to pick up a step drill or get some bigger drills. Alright, I'll let you know how I make out. Okay, so we got the back sides of each of the pieces welded here. The insides of the shanks all welded in. Not as pretty, but they're welded. Last thing is to do these ends here. Both ends. Alright. And then probably just grind them down a little bit so they're not sticking out above the plate too much, so we can still get it in. Alright, I'll show you when we're done. Alright, so there's the outside edge welds. At least that's one side. And there's the other one. Nice penetration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grind those flat with my 40 grit, my 40 grit flat disc. Grind them flush so it slides in nice on the inside of the bucket, and that's okay because we beveled the plates before we welded them, so I have no problem doing that. That shouldn't affect anything. So, all right, check it out later. All right, so last day here. Got all the welding done on the Toothbar last night. All that's left is to drill some holes and mount the teeth to the shank with the pins. So I marked these holes before I took it off. I'm going to start with a center punch. I'm going to center punch the holes in the center so the drill bit doesn't walk, and then start out. I thought I had these step drills, but I didn't, so I ran over to Harbor Freight and got some. Hopefully these work. They weren't too expensive, so hopefully they at least work for this job. Shouldn't need all of them. Not sure which one I'll use. We'll see. Alright, so start off by center punching these. Nice and loud. Start with the smallest one. Start with that first. They're 5/8 bolts, so we're gonna open it up to at least the 5/8, probably one little bit bigger. So let's start here. Getting it started is the hardest part. I think I'll just use this one for the getting started and then switch to the biggest. So we're gonna do this and then we'll be back with the final drilling. All right, so I got all 4 of them started with the smallest one. That took it up to about 1/4 of an inch. All 4 of them. And did 3 of them so far with the middle-sized one here, and that's gonna take it up to about 1/2 an inch. And then I got 1 more to do up to the 1/2 an inch. And I'm gonna finish it up and take it up to, probably go up to 11/16. That's 16th over the 5/8. So that'll be a little bit of slop for misalignment and just ease of insertion of bolts. So last hole up to 1/2 an inch. Change it out. Last one in.
Is that the biggest one?
Yep, it's the biggest one.
Is that the biggest one?
This is the biggest one. All right, so I put tape on here just to make sure I don't go too far. So should have probably a bigger drill, but this one will do. All right, just got to do the other 3. All right, so I got 1 more hole to open up to 11/16, and what I found was actually if you drill from the outside, you actually get better support and you can drill it easier. So let's do it that way. I gotta say, for $8, $9, $10, Harbor Freight came through. So I think that was worth it. So what I got here is a countersink. I'm gonna use that around all the holes. I already did those 2, so the step drills do have somewhat of a countersink, but this does a nice job on just taking the sharp edges off. See, it just kind of puts a little bit of a chamfer on there. And that's that. Alright, so let's throw this up here and see how it looks. Alright, slides right in. And that card, when we tacked it up, that gave us a little bit of play in there, so it slides right in. And look, those holes line up real nice. You can see straight through both sides. So, give you ample washers. I'm going to put that on the outside. And that's pretty nice spacing that they actually gave you there. So you put the washers in. And these bolts are plenty long, so what I might do is I'll get this together. I want to test this out tonight, but I might come back later and cut them down a little bit so they're flush, so they're not sticking out and get all boogered up. So, right. It's going to take a little bit of time here. These have the Nylock auto locks it on there, so you don't need lock washers. One less thing to lose out in the field. Alright, so let me tighten all these up and we'll be right back. Got all 4 bolts and washers and nuts all tightened up. I used my impact wrench actually to make it go a lot faster with those Nylock nuts. So that went pretty quick. I drew it all in nice and tight, even if there was a little bit of a space, which makes getting it on and off easier. So now the last thing is, final, let's put the teeth on. I actually put one together here with the special pin that they use. These are TF23 teeth. So go on here, and the pins you can see says back on it. So it goes towards the back of the equipment, back of the tooth. So just get that started. What I found works good is one of these good quality quick rip bar clamps, not one of the cheap ones. That should push it right in. No oil needed. A little more. That's on. Do another one. Again, back to back. So easy. Might have to resort to the hammer. Okay. Always keep the hammer nearby.
Why is it loose?
It's always supposed to be loose. It's hard to get a good tight fit. You don't want a good tight fit. You'll never get it back off. It'll never break. Again, back to back. Try this again. Here we go. Course, pick the hottest day to do this, but well, all right, here we go. See, at least we're not welding. That would suck. Alright, last one. Back to the back. Well, this works pretty good. I don't know why that one is a little bit different. There you go. Good. One thought I had was before get it all hogged up and dirty, eventually I'm going to cut these off and cut them shorter. So what I did was I just nicked the threads ever so little bit with the angle grinder, the cutoff wheel, just so I know where to cut them off eventually. I didn't want to cut them off now because that gets too hot, and the Nylocks, that's basically like a plastic in that lock nut, and it would just melt it, so ruin its purpose. So I just nicked it so I know where to cut it off later on. All right, let's go test it. So good. Have to test it out on some real fresh ground rather than a big dirt pile, but I'm happy with it. I'll give it a 2 thumbs up.